Okay, I'm gonna change the bushings shifter. There's a kit you get on eBay. I'll show you that in a minute. But, removing this console, there's a couple different things on it. Different videos. Basically, there's two screws in here. You pop the. This is a 93 NA. Another screw in here. There's two screws up in here, which may be covered up. In this case, they'd put a couple of holders in there and put long screws in there. And then I've seen where they pull these switches and the wire harness and all that, and you gotta watch, these are trapped. You know what? You don't need to do that. I started working on that with my little plastic tool. It didn't want to come out of there. I don't want to screw that up. So I said, what the heck? Will this come up? Oh, look at that. Comes right up and out. No problem. Don't you have to disconnect the wires if you don't want to? I probably will to get it out of the way. And you got that sucker out of there. Next step is to pull this sucker. It's like 4 screws and go from there. Alright, there's the bushing kit from Moss Motors on eBay. 2 of these guys, 2 of that guy. So, one part number 907, 186 from these guys gets you 2 each. These bushings and 2 of those bushings, and cheap. I can't remember what I paid for them, but it wasn't a whole lot. Alright, when you get to this stage, just something to make note of. You have a little solenoid here that's connected to this little lever, which allows you to shift it. It's kind of sloppy, but you turn the key when you push the brake on. Where are you? You see that? You pop it in there, then you can shift it into gear. I really like to get it pop into there. See right there, there's a, can't do anything without that. Alright, so something to keep an eye on if you have troubles. Let's try that again so you can see what I'm doing here. So that releases and allows that to shift. Alright. Now we got to get under it. I'm going to unplug this plug. Going to bend these open and see if I can just push all this stuff over to the side without disconnecting the big one there. Let's see. Yeah, you simply push on this little tab right here and just pop that out of there. Oh, but there's another little wire going down there. Well, yeah, we'll see what else has to come off. I may have to take a few more of those things. Good time to check your light bulb. Light bulb goes in right here. Simply untwist it. You'll turn your lights on. You got one there, you got one over there. Verify that now. Alright, here's a really good idea. Good example, or good shot of what's going on here. See how bad those wore out. Those are those 2 green bushings that we have. They go in there. We gotta get this whole thing out of here, which means we gotta take the linkage out of the bottom. Coming up. Man, I almost forgot to take you along with me. 10mm heads. Gotta pull these 4 little 4 bolts out. 4 corners. I'm using a extendo socket and a deep well socket. Pretty straightforward, I think. And I forgot, as always, before you start taking all these clips and open them up and everything, you might want to just snap a picture of where everything goes. I did that. And I also keep a magnet around, because for instance this one up in front here, it's going to get loose, but you want to be able to pull it out of there. So There I am. And the other thing you gotta do, you want to find a place to put everything where you don't lose it, because I got them scattered all over the place already. And then when it's weeks and weeks and you get to the thing, you forget. I gotta go back and look at my videos and see where everything goes. Anyway, alright, let's get those 4 bolts out of there. Yeah, it looks like I have to do a little prying here. There we go. Alright. It's loose. I believe the only thing that's holding it now. There's a cable up there. That guy. Well, we'll see what that entails. So now we got to go underneath the car. Get to the shift linkage. And those 2 of the bushings are down in the shift linkage, so I may actually attempt to not take the shift linkage out, but just pop them loose and replace those bushings with them up in there. Those are the big ones, the little yellow bushings, white bushings. It's hard to see them, but so since I don't have a lift, what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna cheat a little bit. I'm gonna jack up the right side of the car, put the front wheel on a ramp. I don't think this thing can actually go up on a ramp because it's too low, but I can jack the car up and slide that up under there. Then I can lower that down and get the jack out of the way. If that's not enough, I'll jack up the back end and put the other ramp on the other side, so the car's going to be up on its side like that. Nice and secure. I don't have to worry about it falling on my head. So I'm going to give that a shot right now, and let's see what happens. I've mentioned this before. The way floor jacks work, they lift upwards, so they'll pivot right here, so it's actually going to pick up and come back this way. So I was a little scared, and when I started jacking it up, because with the jack sitting in the dirt there, it's going to want to try to pull this way, and the car's going to want to stay over there. So I put a piece of 3/4 inch plywood under it. The idea is as I jack it up, the jack will actually start to slide that way. Instead of the car trying to pull the car, it'll pull the jack up underneath it, because it's got to go up pretty high to get that under there. I just stuck it in front and tried to see if it would go up under there, but it's a little too close, and no, that's not paint from the car. If it was up in here, it might make it, but I'm out here by myself right now. I don't want to take a shot at it, and I think having it sitting on these ramps would be, at least that one, would give me lots of room when it comes. Nice and comfy. So let's see if I can get this thing jacked up here, and may have to lean on it a little bit, but let's see how it goes. There's like, see that front wheel's rolling forward. Looks like it's doing what I'm trying to get it to do. So far so good. Well, that was not comfortable. I ran out of stroke. I had to dig down a little bit to get that under there. It's still going to be really tight, so if I have to, I'll put the jack back up in there and lift it up a little more, but I might be able to get under there. Well, get a light and see. Wow, so yeah, I'm going to have to jack this up a little bit on chest up against the bottom. There's one of the bushings. Love it when things work, right? Where one of the bushings used to be, I should say. And the other one's at the other end, up there. No idea if you can see that. In order to get that off, it looks like I gotta take this arm off. Like here. That sucker right there, that big nut. I'm assuming that must be a non-round shaft, so it like fits on one way. Take that off. I don't think I can get up in there. And take that pin out. and replace that bushing where it is. This back one, sure. That one, I don't think so. That's going to be interesting. As it is, sun's starting to go down. This is going to be something for tomorrow or another day. Bottom of this thing looks good. It's undercoated. Don't see any rust. Alright. We'll look at that another time. Until next time. Alright, I was able to reach up there with a pair of slip joint pliers. This is what the clip looks like. This is on the back side of that arm there. Shifter arm. So you can just pull on this side. Snap it right out of there. 2 washers, there's one on either side of the lever. The bushing is going to go in the middle of that, and there's no bushing in mine whatsoever. I'm going to even take a shot at changing out that front bushing without pulling that arm off of there, the lever with the big nut on it. Now I have it freed up at the top, so I'm going to see how little I have to take apart when I lift that up, because the less the better. I'm going to stick these over here, and I'll come back and deal with that. I didn't need a screwdriver. I'm going to leave it there because I might need it. So I wasn't quite fitting there too good, so this is the configuration that came out. I got a safety, so I can't go anywhere beyond that. I jacked it up all the way again, put a jack stand under there, and then I put a big piece of cardboard. You can see it's even at the back. I don't really like having it tilted over like that, but I don't have any choice. So I can now slide up underneath there and look straight up. Okay, now it's loose. I'm a little wary of, I may plug it back in here, that one, to get it out of park. I think I'm going to do that to bring it back a little bit. It has, I'm wary of taking this thing off of here. Let's see if I can do it without it. The tricky part, see, it's got that cable in the front which operates a little micro switch, which is probably a lockout, probably a maybe a neutral safety switch or something. But let's see if I plug that back in. That'll give me able to put that in neutral at least, I think. Hopefully I can turn the key off at that point. I did this before. Alright, back down in there. Yeah. Push on the brake. Let that loose. Alright. Well, I'm able to turn the key but not turn it all the way out. Turn it off but not pull the key out. So that loosens that whole thing up. Pull that back out so it doesn't get pulled. I'm trying to do as little as possible. I don't want to disconnect this whole thing here. If I can get to the bottom of it, and that's going to be the tricky part. The part I want is under there. I got this cable goes down here to keep that from going anywhere. What I'm trying to do is get underneath there. Let me see if I can get it rolled over enough to work on it without having to pull it all the way out of there. Oh, that was tricky. Okay, so this is a little shaft. When your shifter goes forward, it pushes on that, and when you push that in there, you can actually turn the key and get it out of the ignition. So it just sits in this bracket. So I'm going to go ahead, and you can see it's got flats on. I'm going to go ahead and loosen that up a little bit, slide it out of that bracket, and I should be able to pick this whole thing up with whatever else is attached to it. Let's give that a shot. Okay, using a 12mm, well, that was about as easy as you can get. This wasn't even really tight. Just loosen that just a tad, and that slides right out of the way. Theoretically now, That out of the way. There we go. Alright. So it's got a rubber boot under it. Alright. Let's go turn the radio down and it'll pop me on that. Hold on. Okay, now I understand. You're talking about getting these bushings out of it. You gotta push these bushings out. They just come out. Be careful you don't drop them. And that's gonna free up the boot. The boot is stuck up into the hole. Let me get this. What do I do with that magnet? The magnet's right there just in case I need it. If I won't need it. Okay, so on this side, you can see how that bushing goes up and around. So you got to push the rubber. You got to push the rubber boot into the hole and peel them out. So let me get the rest of those. Alright, once you get that out, you just peel it and work it down right on off of that lever. And look at all that junk that's in there. Make sure we clean that out before we put it back in. Alright, now we have access to the offending loose bushings, which are right in there. Used to be right in there. So that, I think, is also a 12 millimeter. What's that one? 14, I believe it is. So let me grab a 14 and pull that loose that up. Now, of course, you can use a socket on there if you want, but these are long wrenches, so it didn't take too much to. So always make sure you make note of whatever hardware is coming off of there. Other thing you just need to keep in mind is that you got a big hole open over here, so if you drop things, it'll. In my case, I have that big piece of cardboard under there, so I'm putting all this stuff in this over there. I believe this is a pin. May just pop right out. It's just going to slide right out. Okay, so the bushings are going to go in there. So I'm going to gently take this, slide it out. Try not to move it too much, lose anything. Give me a little grease. You see there's some, used to be grease. Get my bushings in my hand. So I'm going to basically slide this out. Let's see if I can, where the bushings press into, they may press into here. Supposedly they press in. That wasn't important. You can see how terrible that is. Wow. The bushings probably press into this center part. Well, let me get out of there and we'll look. Alright, here's the pin. This is loose now. I'm gonna, hopefully this will come down enough to, I don't know if that's why they take the handle off. Let me see if I can get this enough to clear. That may be an issue. Maybe why they take the knob off. Maybe I'll just have to take it loose. See if it'll just come up a little bit to allow this to separate, because this has got to come down enough. There's a little pin in there. Yeah, that's holding in there. Might be able to pop that out of the way. Pop that out of the solenoid bushing, and this thing may pop down. Okay, well that's a no-go. You can't twist it and get that pin out of there. So what I'm doing is taking this screw out, just loosening this one up. My idea is to just pivot it out of the way. But man, you can see the blue on there. That's Loctite. That was a mother. It's a 7mm. I used my 7mm universal wrench. Since my set doesn't have a 7mm. Goes from 6 to 8. Now, the moment of truth. Pull that screw. It's got a little washer on it. Yeah, boy, they put a lot of Loctite on there. Now, that'll just pivot right out of the way. Hold on a second. And indeed it does. So that'll get you clear enough. And I guess that bushing is going to go in there very tight. So I have to clean that hole up, and that's going to almost be a press fit. Wow. Alright, well, let's get all that cleaned up. I don't know where the rest of the bushing went bye-bye. Pretty wild. Okay, so I took a screwdriver basically and scraped out in here all the red. It's almost like grease. Felt like grease. See it on here. I don't know if that's the bushing or what was left. And then took some chlorinated brake cleaner and a rag and ran it through back and forth through there. It looks like I got all the stuff out of it now. Chlorinated brake cleaner. Sorry for the environment. Non-chlorinated brake cleaner. If you've seen that in my other videos, it's absolutely useless. And if you use 5 gallons of non-chlorinated brake cleaner and you still can't clean when you're looking, well, what's the point? You're gonna have to get the other stuff anyway. So with those cleaned out, the bushings are gonna go in there. You can see how sloppy that is, and the bushings are nice and tight fit. Alright, I'm grabbing another battery here. And maybe I'm just lucky. With that cleaned out, I was able to press that in by hand. Let's see if I can get the other one. There's no way I'll be able to show you though. On the other hand, maybe I will. Well, that's interesting. Look at that. Picked up one of those. It's going to be nice and tight when it goes in there. So if I can squeeze that in there, in between there, I'm going to grease this pin up really good. Like, I'll put a little grease on the ends of those too. See if I can force it up in there. Slide that pin back in there and we'll definitely be cruising. Alright, yeah, I know it's tedious, but that's how I roll. I put a little grease on the outside of those bearings, then I gotta, in this case, just something round, put some grease on it and stuck it in there and got some grease inside there. Now I'm going to grease up this pin here, but as you push it through, it would probably push out some of the grease, so I want to make sure there's grease in there as I go. I don't know. I took some real light sandpaper to it to get the remnants of hard red. I guess that was a bushing. It was just like it was hard grease. But this is probably going to take a little doing to or not. I'm gonna put the 14mm wrench on and turn that back and forth and see if it'll work its way in. I'm actually having to tap it to get it in. Oh, by the way, I put that, made sure I got that back inside that solenoid little arm there. When I put it back in there first, I'm just beating over the wrench. I don't know if I'm gonna try my metric adjustable wrench here. That's the ticket. Get that tightened up. You see that lever ain't gonna be going nowhere. Okay, well, that's almost amusing. You know, the only thing keeping me in here was this wire. You can take the whole thing out. Alright, let me move over to the table and finish this up. Yeah, sometimes I crack myself up. You know, this thing was wrapped around the wires and down the side. I thought, oh, the wire is still hooked up. Oh well, at least I figured it out before the very end. So I tighten this up. You can almost, it like bottoms out. It won't get too much tighter than that, I guess. But you can already, oh, I think nice and tight. We'll see better when we get it in place. All I gotta do is put that screw back in there, put the boot back in there, shove the bushings back in there, and we'll be ready to do the hard part, which is getting at that front bushing on the actuator, that lever in there. Boy, how weird angle they put that in there. All right. Wow, that thing's in there tight now, baby. Just because I hate rust, I'm gonna give this a real light coating of WD-40. Like, I'll just spray it on a rag and wipe it on here. Make sure this is cleaned out. All that little red stuff apparently was what used to be bushings. What are we, 22 years? 22 years? 23, 30. What? How old is this thing? 13, 32 years. That's an antique. Gotta get an antique plate. 32 years already. Held up pretty good. Things are looking good in there. All the little parts, see, the micro switch is still there. Like it. Okay. Spray a little WD-40 on the top to get a little light rust. I'm going to actually leave this out for now. Put it somewhere. I don't know where I'm going to put it. I guess I'll put it back on the table. So I got some light in here, so I can see that little lever, which is way down there. So let me grab one of those little bushings. You see the output shaft has got a little bit of leakage on it, not bad. And I'll be spraying all this down with WD-40 because I hate corrosion, and this is aluminum. So I'll wait until I'm done down there, clean all this off, clean that out, and then I'm going to spray that, of course, with WD-40, wipe it down, whatever. I hate rust. Alright, let me, hold on, let me grab my little bushings. Oh, sweet. It's got shoulders on both sides. That's going in here. So that means I can put that right in there. I said, that means I can put it right in there. You know, sometimes I just make things difficult by doing it with one hand. It's going to take two hands. Stand by. Took my other thumbnail. Now that bushing is trapped in there. So when I set that down in there, I don't have to worry about reaching up in there. The problem we're about to run into is if I don't take that lever off, I'm gonna reach up in there with a long pair of needle nose, try to pull that pin, try to somehow reach up in there. There's no bushing in there now, and I have to put that bushing in, what I just did here, way up inside there. So let me I'm gonna pull the pin and get that rod off there and see if it's gonna be practical to do that, or if I have to pull that lever. But I don't want to pull that lever. So the goal is to reach up in there, and now let's see if I can show you what I'm doing. All right, hopefully having the right tools, hopefully these are long enough. If not, I actually have a pair that's even longer than this. I don't awfully use them very often, but when you do need to. Alright, so that's why my intention is to reach up and grab that pin just like that clip. And well, let me get on my back and see if I can light it up and show you where I'm going. Yeah, see, there's the arm. And now the bushing's up in the arm, and the other arm. There we are. So that I just have to put one washer on this side, slide it up in there, grease it up a little bit, and then slide it up in there. But the tricky part is going to be get to that one up there. So I'm going to definitely pull the pin with either these needle nose or another pair. Jeez, I don't know if I could get my hands up in there. But you know what? I haven't done anything impossible today. That pin will come right out of there. It'll come right out forward. See how it's in there? I can get that out. It's just a matter of getting that bushing in there and getting that back up in there. So, well, let's get to it. See how much it takes. Yep, they're not quite big enough, so I'm going to the longer ones. Ooh, you're tight up in there. When nature attacks, I don't know what the heck is going on, but I got a bunch of crows that just moved in and going wacko. Go! Take off, hosers. Alright. So, got it out. Wasn't too bad. Washer's still on there. This bushing is going to go on there, but of course, that bushing has to go up inside that little round hole on that lever first. Wind's picking up. Hope it'll keep the mosquitoes off me. So let me see if I can reach up in there one way or another. That's the next step. I can't stick a camera, no room up in there in my face. Now it's at this point I am going to reiterate once again that when you want to do something impossible, the most important thing you can do is persistence. That's the most important characteristic. Somehow I was able to reach up from the outside under here and put that bushing in. I dropped it a couple of times. It took me half an hour to find it. Managed to get it back in there when I switched positions from the passenger side, reaching up inside there. That was one of the impossible things. And then you gotta, somehow I managed to do it by finger pressure. Just, mind you, I probably have stronger fingers than most as being a mechanic for my last, I don't know, 50 years. But I was able to squeeze that bushing in there, and then I put the little arm up in there, and you'll see this thing here. That thing is jammed up in there to hold that arm over. It's got one washer on one side, then you gently had to put that other washer on there. I couldn't get it to lay flat. I couldn't find the, well, the first time I did, I couldn't find the hole. Till I lowered the back end of this linkage. I couldn't get that washer to lie flat, but I was able to reach up in there with that pin on my long needle nose. Somehow pushed that little washer down and it just slid right in there. So that is in place. All the hard stuff is over. I this, pull that other piece out. This one gets reached up. Okay, so maybe it's not completely over yet. That gets a washer. I'll see if I try this tonight or not. I've done enough impossible things, but maybe I will. What the heck? Sorry, it's gonna be dark. I have to get another light here. I'll get another light. I'm just gonna drop this sucker in place, hook that layering linkage up in the bottom, and then work on all the rest of this. But yeah, I need some light. Okay, that's much better. That styling bar put in here makes a good mounting point for that light. All right, this assembly is going to be slid. All my bushings are in there. Gotta make sure this thing comes out. It's going to go up there. And it's just like that. Now I'm going to go down there and hook this thing up. I think I had it neutral to start with. And then reassemble everything. So let me get down there and do that, and this should be pretty close. Okay, so I was wrong. I had to put it in park. But by leaving it loose up there, I was able to wobble it around. Push this thing over, same thing. Managed to get a washer on each side. In this case, the pin came straight down. A lot easier to get to than that one over there. So, new bushings down here, greased up, bushings upstairs. Means I'm done down here. I can get out from under here and stop getting eaten by mosquitoes. Alright, let's get that thing back together. Alright, next step was to put the cable gizmo thing back up in there. That little slot. Whatever that thing does. Then I'm going to go ahead and put the big bolts in. And then I'm going to figure out these wires. I'm going to have to look at the pictures. I've taken pictures of it. I won't know what's what. What all I have to do is remember. Remember where I put my bolts. I always have this issue. They're probably behind me here. I think that's the last thing I'm going to do tonight. Put the console back together tomorrow. Look at that. Solenoid's working. Woohoo, baby. Sweet. Alright. Things seems to be working in there. Mosquitoes are killing me, so I'm going to hang it up. But that's the main gist of that. If there's any other real little details, well, I'll just follow along when I put it back together. Why not? Take it to the end. Okay, I got some light. I'm in the shade now. So, put 4 screws back in there. I only have, looks like 3 screws left. Figure out where they go. One up there, one down there. So I'm going to set this thing right in here. Hopefully all I got to do is just set it down and should be good. Okay, well it's not quite that. You got to go back here and make sure you tilt it in that way so you get your rubbers. And that drops down. Carrying chains in there, if you don't have anything covering that up, the dimes go right in there and they're a pain in the butt. So I got 2 screws there, 3rd screw there. There's my 3 screws. And the 2 side ones, which were put the drink holders. He said something. I think that's about it. Just drop the little compartments in here. Let's do it. Alright, you just... 2 screws go back there. Screw in there. In case you're wondering, these are actually marine boat cup holders. If you like that kind of thing, have them on my boat. I'm not so sure about this one, but I guess you could put one there. Better than nothing, I guess, huh? And once those screws, when you put this console, and make sure all your harnesses are stuck up underneath there. Which way does that go? I guess it goes like that. There's a little blue lens right there. I guess the light that goes in there will actually light that up at night. And I believe that's it. Let's check it out. Look at this. Look at that. Looks like all the gears work. Goes in neutral where it's supposed to, reverse where it's supposed to, park wheel. I never took that lever loose, so there's no reason to think that it doesn't go where it belongs. Next thing is to take it for a drive. I think we're good to go. There you go. I hope that helps. One thing I forgot to say, I think I got sidetracked when I was trying to put the clips and started trying to put that one bushing that goes in there to start with. That impossible task. As I say often, sometimes the universe has to know that you're serious about something. So if you're working on something and you really got to get it done, and you're thinking, oh, I can't do this, you got to get to the point where you make the commitment and go, you know what, I'm not stopping until I get this done. And sometimes miracles will happen, and I've been very fortunate. When I get to that point, things will definitely they usually work out. So it's like down that bushing, I just kept working on it and ended up just managed to push that sucker on by finger pressure only, and then putting that clip in there was a real pain in the butt. But same thing, you got to act deliberately and know for sure that you're going to complete the task and you're going to be successful. And once the universe accepts the fact that you are serious and you're not going to quit until it gets done, it usually just gives up and lets you get it. So that's the bit of wisdom for this. It was a pain in the butt, but I can do it. Yeah, anybody can do it. Sure. Alright. Good luck. Until next time. I'm just getting started on this thing now. 3 projects in. Plenty more to go.